Hello everybody! So this is the first Sunday of the month, and like I said, I'm going to begin doing the Sunday studies at the first of the month. So for those who may be new to this, basically what it is I'm a Sunday school teacher in real life, and a lot of people have a lot of questions about the Bible or Bible stories. So what I do is I just work my way through a Bible story for people who just may not want to go to church or for whatever reason may not be that interested in the idea of the Bible but still want to know some stuff about it, or just anyone who wants to listen. So this is basically that. It's very casual. There's not a lot of editing. Normally I'm outside when I do this, but I'm a little under the weather, so I'm kind of cheating by sitting in front of a window. And I just realized this may be backlit a lot and I could look really like faded out right now, but whatever, it's close enough. So normally I'm outside being attacked by bugs, but I think I'm safe this time. But thank you all so much if you decide to stick around. If you're not interested, I totally understand. And thank you for sticking around this far anyway. There will be, regular channel videos as always, but like I said, this has been my most requested series forever, really. So I want to start doing it at least once a month. So for today, we are going to be talking about a story regarding Moses. So Moses is a very interesting character in the Bible. When he was a baby, the Pharaoh, he lived in Egypt, the Pharaoh had put out an order to kill all of the young boys, ages, I believe it was like newly born to 2 years old, because he didn't want the people building up an army of their young men in the next 20 years in order to overthrow them. So they had all the young boys killed. So Moses' mother, in an act of faith, put Moses in a basket and pushed him down the Nile River, which is obviously dangerous, but she knew that if she didn't, he would just be killed. And then sure enough, Moses floated into the king's palace, and one of his wives took Moses and raised him as her own son. So Moses, there's a lot to go into. You could do an entire series talking about his entire life. But specifically, what I want to look at today is one of his battles against Amalek and how he handled it. Because I think it's not only something interesting, but it's something important that I think we can learn from in the modern sense. So if anyone's interested, this is in Exodus chapter 17. The specific verses I'm going to be reading are verses 8 through 14. And basically what had happened right before this is God had performed a miracle for his people. They're in the middle of the desert at this time, and the people were dehydrated, they were starving. So God told Moses to go to a giant stone to tap it, and when he did, water would come out. So sure enough, Moses did, water came out, and the people were able to drink. So this is immediately after a good time for them, right? And most often, whenever we get hit really hard or we get kind of blindsided by something in life, it tends to come after a victory or after something good's come our way. And that's no different here. So I'm going to begin reading in verse 8. And it says, "Then came Amalek and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And Moses said unto Joshua, Choose us out men, and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in mine hand." So Moses' staff is a really big deal. There is a lot of different miracles that were performed with it. There were times that it became a serpent and then turned back into a staff, which I think I even talked about in the Bible iceberg. But the staff is a big deal. It's a sign of God's providence. So what Joshua is his chief captain of the military. He tells Joshua to go do battle, and then whenever you guys are out there doing battle, I will be at the top of the mountain, and I will hold up that staff as a sign of God's will, and as a means of the Spirit able to work through the military. So anyway, it says then in verse 10, it says, "So Joshua did as Moses had said to him, and fought with Amalek, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill." Aaron and Hur are important in the Bible, as those are two of the high priest, or essentially the people who talk to God, because, as I mentioned before, the Old Testament's very different from the New Testament or the way we live now. It was a much more physical interaction with God rather than prayer and spirituality. So these are two very faithful men, or very spiritual men, who are following Moses up the mountain. And Aaron, I should mention now, is Moses' brother. Or more specifically, he was one of the brothers who came along later in life whenever Moses went down this path, because remember, Moses was separated as a child from his actual mother, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, Aaron is Moses' brother as well. And so where was I? And it came to pass when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. So whenever he's holding the rod up, God is with him. God is helping them fight the army. But every time that rod comes back down, the army begins to lose. And it says, but Moses' hands were heavy. Because, you're holding a rod for the duration of an entire battle. Eventually your arms are going to get tired. It says, but Moses' hands were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him. And he sat thereon, and Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, the one on the one side and the other on the other side. And his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. So what's happened is Moses has to keep the rod up in order for the battle to continue to prevail and in order for them to win. But it's hard, right? It's understandable that'd be hard for anyone to hold the rod above their hands for that long. So what Aaron and Hur, the two men he brought with him, do is they put a stone underneath him, he sits down on it, and they each get on one side and hold up his hands. And it's such a beautiful picture. And the reason I talk about this a lot, especially in like my Sunday school class, a lot of us forget the Bible as a story. Like forget the details that go into it and how beautiful of a picture it makes, because there's several times throughout that we see this imagery of someone helping up someone else, or essentially like the kind Samaritan coming along to help out, which is the Good Samaritan in itself is a story from the Bible. But to have these two such faithful men stand beside Moses, it's such a beautiful picture. And where that comes to affect us is there has been several times in all of our lives, I'm sure, where we came across something that we couldn't do on our own. I mean, it's different for everyone else. I'm trying to think of what an example I should say on the internet would be, but just like times of trial when it comes to relationships falling out, or times of trial whenever it comes to just depression, or in any personal battle that you have. It's hard to do it alone, right? Like it's hard to keep that staff raised all the time. But every now and then there's been people that have come into our lives and they've held our hands up. And it's interesting too, because one of these men is Moses' brother, right? Aaron. And you're like, well, yeah, Aaron would absolutely hold his hand up, no problem. But Hur, I could be wrong, but to the best of my knowledge, Hur isn't mentioned again. I think he's mentioned before as being one of the priests, but Hur is not a prominent figure in the Bible. He's not some reoccurring character. He's not some super righteous man. He was just there, and he was able to help where he could. And it paints this beautiful image of there have been several people that have come into our lives who we may have forgotten about now, or they may not still be as important as a part as they once were, but they were still there to hold our hands up when we needed them. And even though we don't know her, I'm sure that Moses never forgot him after this. I'm sure that after they were able to win the battle by his hands being held up, Moses didn't take that for granted. I know he didn't take Aaron for granted. But the people who come into our life, whether they be very close to us like Aaron was, or just there for a little while like her, it's important to remember those people who held our arms up when we needed them. But not only that, it's also important to remember when someone needs their arm held up. And some people take it a little too far in some requests, and that's not what I'm talking about. Like, they keep, I guess, what would be the way? They keep working as a crutch or an enabler for someone and allows them to make the same mistakes again and again. And that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, whenever someone is truly trying to be better, or someone is suffering, or they're just in a place that they can't get out of, it's important for us to recognize that sometimes we need to be an Aaron or a Hur so that later someone else can be an Aaron and Hur to us. Or to just be her, to be the silent hero who's not mentioned again, who doesn't get the praise and the glory, but he held up Moses' arm. And I really love this story for that reason. Not only because her's not mentioned, that's a beautiful picture of it, but just the battle was won. The story continues to go on. The rest of the Bible continues to go on, and the people continue to prevail because of these two men who held up Moses' arm. And then reading in the last couple verses, it says, and they held it up all day. It says they held it up till the going down of the sun. And then it says in verse 13, and Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. And the Lord said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in a book, and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua, for I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. So what God is essentially saying here is what has happened here today is very important. Write it down, remember it, and give it to Joshua, who Joshua eventually becomes Moses' successor after Moses dies. And here, we're reading it now. It's so interesting that God told Moses to write this down so that ages will remember it. And here we are reading it, and here I am talking about it on the internet. But it's just such a beautiful picture. And the reason I wanted to bring that story particularly to you today is that I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what troubles you could be facing. And I don't know if you know someone that could be going through trouble. But if either you need your hands held up or there's someone you know that needs their help with their hands. I hope that maybe, given this, I don't know the circumstance, I don't know what's going on, but maybe you can help them if they need it, or at the least you can remember those who have helped you or are helping you, because it's rare that people get an Aaron or it's rare that people get an Aaron or a Hur in their life, or that they get to be an Aaron and Hur. And while everyone remembers Moses and everyone remembers the great things he did, it's equally as important to me to remember the people who helped hold his hands up. So that is this month's Sunday study. I hope that you enjoyed. There were a bunch of people leaving comments in the previous one I saw, and it's so cool that you guys really want these videos. Even on my other videos, people are saying to keep doing the Sunday study, which is neat, and I appreciate it. But in the comments, there were people who were kind of wanting me to break down these abstract Bible topics, which is stuff I'll probably do in other videos. I still plan to do a video about the different types of angels and all of that. But if there's a specific story or maybe a tale that you've heard that maybe, for example, if you heard, I think there was a story that has to do with a donkey talking, which is a thing that happened, or just something weird like that. Maybe it could be something that I'm interested. So let me know in the comments. But above all else, I hope that you enjoyed. If you stuck around this long, thank you. I know this is really weird for YouTube or in the modern sense to do on a channel, but it's something personally that I want to do. So again, if you stuck around this long, thank you so much. I appreciate it. This channel is growing, and I'm blessed beyond belief, and it's thanks to you all. And I'm really grateful. So thank you all so much for watching, sticking around. Thank you to all my subscribers and patrons and everyone else. I couldn't do it without you guys. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.